Well, this time of year you want to keep checking your fall garden and see how it's doing, and I know we've referred back to ours a number of times this fall, but I just want to show you how all that work we did back when it was 100 degrees has paid off. Look how gorgeous this broccoli is. There's very little pest damage on it. We've continued to keep the remay over it. It looks just beautiful, and pretty soon hopefully we'll be harvesting some in a couple of weeks. Now on down here there is something interesting going on. Most of our cabbage looks gorgeous. Pest-free, looks beautiful. We've not had to use any pesticides on it, but over here is one straggler. It's not growing very well at all. And it just happens that in this raised bed garden on the corner here, we had two little cabbages that were just stuck in as a sort of a happenstance thing earlier this summer, or spring rather, and we took those out right before planting, and I believe there's probably some cabbage maggots down there working on that root system and stunting the growth of it, and it's good evidence as to why you really should not plant the same cole crop back in where you've had some previously. You really need to skip over a year and then plant back in that spot to make sure your pests don't build up. Well, our summer squash that we planted, the zucchini, is doing just beautifully. We have little fruits just coming on, and hopefully we'll be able to harvest those pretty soon as well. And back over here, a few weeks ago, remember we planted the multiplier onions and garlic, and just want you to see how well it's doing. This is the white garlic that we planted. We have some Italian garlic coming up, and it's interesting to see the difference in their growth habits. Then we have elephant garlic that's just now coming through, and it is going to be huge, so it's a good thing that we didn't plant it too close together. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind is that fall weeds are starting to pop through, henbit and others, so stay ahead of those or start using a mulch. We also have a succession planting of lettuce and some other fall greens that are doing real well, and I want you to see this stair-step fashion that we have going on here. And our Oklahoma gardening ambassadors are anxious to cut this lettuce and enjoy making a salad. And we're going to cut a little bit as well and take that on in, and we'll get that in the refrigerator, and you want to make sure that you get this cooled down as quickly as possible. The nice thing about leaf lettuce, of course, is that you can cut some back, and its growing point is down near the soil line. So if you don't cut it too far, you can continue to have a harvest on into fall, and that's a very easy way to cut it. And isn't that beautiful? That's a mix of different leaf lettuce varieties, and we're really going to enjoy that later on in the day. Well, we got a letter this week from Margaret Paulin, and Mrs. Paulin lives down in Wilburton, Oklahoma, and she wrote to us about a grasshopper problem that she's having. She mentioned that any vegetables that she plants in the fall, they just seem to be marauded by grasshoppers. We just received this yesterday, so didn't have time to research the latest in grasshopper control, but we did have a nice example of organic grasshopper control that John Bodie caught on tape just a few minutes ago. There's an orb weaver spider that's caught a grasshopper in its net. Now that probably won't totally solve Mrs. Paulin's problem, because she mentioned she has them by the hundreds. But next week on Oklahoma Gardening, we'll make sure that we have some good answers for you, Mrs. Paulin. Just like any extension question we get, if we don't know, we'll sure try to find out. Well, 2 weeks ago, we planted Dutch bulbs in the garden, and those are hopefully starting to send out roots and get established. And now it's time to dig up some summer flowering bulbs and get them stored for the winter. So why don't you meet me over in the white garden? Well, we've certainly enjoyed looking at our white garden this year and how all the different plants have bloomed at a different time, but some of them it's time to bring them up. And this is some caladiums that have looked just gorgeous this summer, but falling down like this and starting to decay tells us it's time to get these dug up for fall. And when you're lifting any of the summer bulbs that are not hardy, you want to make sure that you do it at the right time, and also that you do it correctly. And I just want to give you a few tips on that. We've just dug this out of the ground, and this is very heavy soil here, and so I've got to move very carefully. And if you have a heavy garden soil, you want to be careful not to snap the bulbs apart, because caladium bulbs are very brittle. In fact, we realized in this garden we need to spend considerable time this winter enriching this soil, getting some organic matter into it to help loosen up that clay. That's really the only way to go. Okay, here we go. Now these were planted this spring, and they've increased in number quite a bit, which is a nice thing about caladiums and gladiolus and other bulbs that that we buy in the spring, it pays to dig them in the fall and store them, because usually their numbers have at least doubled in number, and so you don't have to buy them next spring, plus you have twice the number that you started with, so it's sort of like money in the bank. Now over here I have some caladiums that I've already dug, and I want you to take a look at these. I washed them off with water, and we don't really want you to do that for storage purposes, and these still need time for the leaves to die down. But I want you to notice how if you're not careful, they'll break off, and you can end up with areas where the tissue is exposed, where they've broken off, and that can rot in storage. And so you want to just dip that in a little bit of fungicide. And then remember, with caladiums and other bulbs, go ahead and let the foliage dry down completely. Now over here is a good example. These are some calla lilies that I had planted in a container at home, and the foliage has already died off, and you have these nice clean points on top where the foliage came away, and that bulb is ready to be stored. I have one here where I got a little bit anxious and the foliage had not completely died down, and this concave area here is part of the bulb that was broken off and torn off when I was digging the leaves up, and got a little anxious. So you want to be careful, and that's an area again that can be open to damage. Now with any of these bulbs, such as the calla lilies or the caladiums, once they've dried down a bit, go ahead and store them in dry sand, vermiculite, perlite, or peat moss. And we have peat moss right here. And this is a good medium for storage because peat moss for the most part is sterile. You're not going to have a lot of disease organisms in it. And just put those in a box and cover them up, and they'll store just right for winter. And you want to make sure that you label the box. The end of this says calla lilies. And last of all, on this part of it, make sure that you mark next year's calendar. I have April 95 here, but once you buy your calendars this fall, mark April 96 to go find your calla lilies and your caladiums, get them out of storage and plant them, because by then you may have forgotten that you have them, and you'll go to the store and buy new ones, and you've lost the whole benefit of having gone to the work to dig them this fall. Now one more that I want to show you is gladiolas. And these are some that I dug this morning from out in the yard, and notice how the leaves have dried down quite a bit. And I have some of the foliage right here. I'm going to let that part, I snipped it off, I'm going to let that part continue to dry down naturally before I store them, but I want to emphasize that these two corms grew off the top of the mother corm just this year, and those are in good shape. And then this corm developed a lot of small cormals, and that's these right here. And those can be propagated this spring. Go ahead and store them in peat moss along with your other large gladiola corms. And then this spring, take some pots, fill them with potting soil, and plant those in just about a ½ inch deep. And keep them in a bit of a nursery bed, and they, again, will increase in size, and then next year you can plant them out in the garden after next summer. And that will also increase your stock of gladiolas. And that's kind of a fun project to do, and especially when they increase like that, you don't want them to get too overcrowded. Well, make sure that you get out this fall and get your summer bulbs up, get them stored properly, and don't forget that you have them come next spring.